name is Erick. I am an intern for the class of Messed that up.
Just keep going.
Okay. For the season of 2021, and I'm here with Jordan LaMothe. So to start off, could you just elaborate a little bit more about what kind of path you took, educational as well as work experience-wise, that got you to this point?
Sure. So I started blacksmithing when I was 14. I took my first class at a little art school, art center, 20 minutes from my house, Salem Artworks in Salem, New York. And that was after having read a bunch of blacksmithing books. And from there, I basically taught myself. I read books, I put together my own shop in my parents' barn, and started making my own tools as a way of refining my skills, building my shop, and pursuing the craft that I really love. Once I was, around the time I graduated high school, I was starting to transition to blades and making knives, and I was really absorbed with, I was really taken with that whole kind of direction of the craft, because I got to do a lot of different things. I got to do blacksmithing, machining, woodworking, leatherworking, and put them all into one. So I started to take blades, I started to move in the direction of making blade making my occupation. So throughout college, I was working on vacations to just build inventory, to work on orders, to work on my shop. And when I graduated college, I went full-time as a bladesmith.
Awesome. Did you feel like art was always the center? Like you were never going to go into, like, let's say, engineering or somewhere in the medical field?
Yeah, I've always been an artist. I've always been kind of I've always taken to artistic expression in various ways. I'm a musician as well, and I've always loved working with my hands, both from an art perspective, but also from a craft perspective. I enjoy making functional things. I enjoy making tools, and I like making tools that are beautiful. So that's kind of how I would define myself as a craftsperson artist. I like making useful, beautiful things.
Nice. Were you always self-taught, or did you ever take classes? Or?
So other than that initial blacksmithing workshop that I took at age 14, I did not take a class up until just fall of 2019. I was almost exclusively self-taught for the majority of my work. Now, I also was very involved and still very involved with the knife making community in general. Especially in the Northeast, there are lots of knife makers and bladesmiths, and we get together at conventions multiple times a year. So I get to have the opportunity to watch demonstrations and to talk shop with these guys and to just compare notes, and also, maybe more than anything, to get critique on my work. So at any time, I feel like at a certain point, once you know the basic skills of how to make something, the most valuable thing you can have is critique. And to be able to bring your knife to somebody who is very accomplished at what they're doing, and to have them look through and find everything that you could improve with your knife, is one of the most helpful things, and was a pivotal kind of, or I should say, was instrumental in my kind of advancement in the craft.
Amazing. How about your first ever knife? How did that turn out? How was your experience?
So I started making knives after having been blacksmithing for about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer. And I had most of the information that I had on knife making was from blacksmithing books, which are not very comprehensive when it comes to knife making techniques. And they were rough. I was making them out of scrap materials. I didn't have an idea in my head of what could feasibly be made by So a lot of those first knives were very rough in ways that I would never do now, and also ways that the knives that my students make are not. It would have kind of jump-started my trajectory in the class if I had trajectory in the class in the craft if I had taken a class to begin with, perhaps. But first knives were rough.
We fall in the same boat there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand there were differences between two steels and
yeah, right, exactly. And and I was also working with kind of limited machinery. Like the exposure that I had in blacksmithing books was talking about like using bench grinders and stuff. I didn't have a bench grinder at the time. I was using an angle grinder to grind my knives. And then after spending some time like going to hammer-ins and that sort of thing, getting the feedback and I became involved with the American Bladesmith Society, and they have a lot of educational resources out there. I realized that actually a lot of this can be done with files, hand filing, and that you can make a really nice knife without fancy grinding equipment. And that was like the first nice knife that I made, which is still not nice by my standards today, but it was really started moving in the direction of trying to make everything tight and clean and symmetrical. It was done all with files.
Nice. I guess, how did you begin learning about bringing yourself out there, connecting and expanding your business?
Well, it was the business side of things was almost purely a practicality. Like I knew that I wanted to make knives. I wanted to make that my job so that I didn't have to do anything else. And so the way I see it is I kind of started with a small circle and just kind of expanded that slowly. So at one of the first commissions and pieces that I sold were purchased by friends and family, basically. And then that circle kind of grows by word of mouth and whatnot over time. Now my big kind of breakout into the public knowledge was Forged in Fire, competing on Forged in Fire and winning that television show. I all of a sudden had a lot of people who were interested in my work and wanted to buy what I had. So that really jump-started my career in that regard. And the timing was kind of perfect. It came out right at the end of senior year of college, and I could go full-time right from there with a nice long wait list. And I didn't have to worry about the marketing side of things for a long time.
Wow. That's amazing.
I got lucky, yeah.
How would you describe your experience in Forged in Fire?
Forged in Fire was a blast. It was a lot of fun. It was fun to be in that kind of high-stakes situation. It was fun to compare my skills against those of other people. I've always been a rather competitive person, so to be able to have an outlet for that, where I got to compete in the area that I know best, which is bladesmithing, that was very exciting for me. And I enjoyed meeting both the producers and people on the show, and also the other contestants.
Yeah, totally. Would you have any advice for someone who's starting out?
I mean, there's no substitute for getting your hands dirty and just making the knives. I recommend. So there are so many different ways into this craft, and everybody I talk to who has come really far in this craft comes at it from a slightly different angle. Some people like to start out and they make a lot of knives. You start out here, you just forge a knife, grind it, finish it, put it away, next one. That was more of my kind of trajectory into the craft. I've also seen people who start out very methodically, and their first knives are darn near flawless, and that's another great way to get into it. But I think in anything, and probably in any craft, you have to figure out what part of the craft inspires you. Is it the functionality? Is it the artistry? Is it what kinds of aesthetic choices that people make on knives inspire you? What kinds of gestures do you want to imitate in your own art, and to be deliberate about that? It's kind of a nebulous answer. How do you start out? I suppose you could take a class, read a book.
So many different routes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Can you ask him how he found out about Touchstone?
Oh yeah, for sure. So how did you find out about Touchstone?
About Touchstone, that's a good question. So I had heard of Touchstone through my friend Anna Koplik, who's taught here. I met Anna at a Hammer Inn a couple of years ago, and she had mentioned that she had been down here. And then I believe it was Travis reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to teach here, and that was how I got to be here.
Did you find yourself a little nervous coming here? This is your first time, right?
Yeah, it's my first time at Touchstone. I guess I didn't really know what to expect, but I've done a fair bit of teaching at 3 other schools that I've taught at, so I wasn't particularly nervous coming into the class, but definitely excited. And Touchstone is a really incredible facility and a great community. Like that's one thing that I wasn't really prepared for, that I was really enamored of, is just the community of people here and the kind of interaction between people in different crafts, and I can see a lot of potential for creative synergy that happens in that sort of environment, so I appreciate it.
Well, we're happy to have you here.
No, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
It's been a great time with you and learning a lot as well.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, I enjoy the open forge hours and that sort of thing. Like after the class is done, you're still hanging out. You're eating dinner with folks. You're then go back into the studio and have time to work on other things, side projects, like little other areas of interest that you can pursue, and that's part of what makes it an inspiring place. It's not just 9 to 5 and then it's done.
Right. Yeah. Fortune leaf belt buckle.
Exactly. Or an axe. Have you finished that one?
Yeah, the little tiny one.
No. Oh, I was just talking about the welded axe. Now we were gonna.
Yeah, I drew that out.
You drew it out.
Yeah.
So it's ready for welding.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for being here and coming to Touchstone. It really means a lot.
My pleasure, Eric. I really enjoyed it.